If you were a fan of arcade games in the 1980s and early 1990s, chances are you happened upon one of the many gun games Sega created for the genre. These were always fun and the multiplayer component added a ton of appeal. Things began to heat up in 1994 when they took their gun games into the realm of three-dimensional polygons. This allowed for some really cool upgrades to the gameplay that really stood out. Aside from the great graphics, it also allowed for enemies to respond directly to your shots and where they landed. This was combined with a combo-based scoring system, which made for a great competitive side game with the second player. As time went on, these games got bigger and better, especially when it came to the technology that drove them and the physical machines that they played on. In 1996, Sega AM3 dropped Gunblade NY on us, a dynamic on-rail shooter that saw you dealing with terrorists from a battle-ready helicopter. It was followed in 1998 by what was essentially a sequel called LA Machineguns, again by Sega AM3. These games only came home once, and it was the Nintendo Wii that received them in a compilation called Arcade Hits Pack, Gunblade NY and LA Machineguns in 2010. It had full support for the Wii Zapper, which gave us a lot of that arcade feel still intact. In this episode, we are going to take a look at this release and see how it fared, and is it worth revisiting today. I hope you guys enjoy my review of Gunblade NY and LA Machineguns for the Nintendo Wii. We're gonna start with Gunblade NY, which was originally developed on the Sega Model 2 arcade technology. The story takes place in 2005 with a terrorist group of AI-powered robots called Bear EX descending upon New York with the intention of destroying the entire city. The SAAF, short for Special Air Assault Force, sends in its best team of gunners aboard a special combat helicopter to take them down. The game itself has two main levels of play. First is the easy mode, which takes you through Times Square, Midtown Manhattan, the UN headquarters, and ends up at a cargo ship. Hard mode takes place on the Brooklyn Bridge, at Battery Park, the Grand Army Plaza, and finally Midtown at night. You'd be forgiven to think that this is just another Virtua Cop clone, but you'd be wrong. It is a rail shooter with the familiar targeting alert system, but this gameplay is way faster, more dynamic, oozes intensity, and is bolstered by an enemy AI that reacts and moves based on your attack patterns. These robots are not easy to hit, and you need to guess where they're headed if you want to drop them as quickly as possible. To stay with this theme, Gunblade NY gives you unlimited ammo to pepper the battleground with continuous fire. The trick is to stay on the most threatening enemy and fell them as quickly as possible. At the end of the two difficulty options, you'll face a boss encounter that leads to a possible ending. It is possible to fail the final mission and still beat the game. In the arcade, this game came with two gigantic machine guns mounted on the cabinet that had recoil with every shot. It was a huge part of the appeal, and the Wii version does mimic the experience to a degree, thanks to comm chatter coming through the speaker on the controller and rumble support. You can play it with the nunchuck, but this lessens the experience considerably. LA Machineguns has the subtitle of Rage of the Machines, and was originally developed for the Sega Model 3 arcade technology. This takes place 20 years into the future with yet another robot-powered terrorist group causing trouble in the good old US of A. Though this one is called LA Machineguns, it actually takes place across a few different locations. You'll do battle in Los Angeles, Alcatraz, Las Vegas, Yosemite, and in the skies above the Valley of Fire in Nevada. Instead of running down enemies in a souped-up attack helicopter, you get hover bikes that are even faster and more dynamic. It's still a rail shooter, and the AI that powered Gunblade New York is back and even smarter, making you work for every kill. Because this one was done on the Sega Model 3, the visuals see a massive jump in detail and complexity, particularly in regards to texture detail and the polygon models. This also translates to a widening of the types of environments you fight across. It makes the original game seem tame in comparison. You just don't fight in the city here. You'll see a number of different areas, including some underground conflicts. There are 5 stages in total, but you can only access the final mission once the others have been defeated. The original arcade also relied on 2 cabinet-mounted machine guns featuring a heavy recoil mechanic. And of course, this version supports the same Wiimote configuration as Gunblade New York. They both also have difficulty settings should you want something even more challenging, and you can even open up some extra options to spice up the gameplay should you perform well enough. It goes without saying, but both these games support 2 players on the Nintendo Wii. The Nintendo Wii was considered quite underpowered at its 2006 release. Fortunately, it did have enough under the hood for games created in the 1990s. Both Gunblade New York and LA Machineguns make the move over to Nintendo's machine with passable emulation. They perform admirably, and I can't say I saw any instances of prolonged or game-breaking slowdown during gameplay. This is pretty important as both arcade games ran at a super smooth frame rate, and that has been retained here. All of that is likely going to see mixed results with many of you. If you are like me, you appreciate the developers staying close to the source material, but I'm sure many of you are asking why this didn't get a bunch of graphical upgrades to take advantage of the Wii's more powerful hardware. In fact, one could argue that the lighting and shading here has been muted somewhat, leading to a duller visual presentation. Gunblade New York seems overly bright and missing some of the more nuanced lighting of the arcade, while LA Machineguns seems overly dark, with a crushing contrast that often makes it difficult to see some enemies. Personally, I still think both of these games look very nice overall. Model 2 and 3 arcade games were among some of the prettiest of their day, and the developers captured that here fairly well. I haven't played the arcade games in quite some time, but this home port has solid textures, models, and the 2-player action works like a charm. Fans of the era and the genre should absolutely love it. Arcade purists will nitpick the emulation quality, but will still enjoy the gameplay. Sega's sound teams never failed to give us something special in every arcade game they created. There are some rocking tracks here, and it serves up an intense and engaging atmosphere to go along with the gameplay. Here are a few tracks from each one to show you what I mean. It's pretty difficult to mount any major complaints against this combo. It's true that not having the huge arcade machine gun recoiling in your hands is a major disappointment, but hardly the fault of the Wii. I mean, a peripheral like that would have been over $100 and hard to justify for a few games. You could argue that Sega should have included Virtua Cop 3 to really sweeten the deal, but this originally retailed for a mere 29 bucks, so getting two awesome multiplayer gun games for $15 a piece hardly seems worth complaining about. Once you consider the gameplay and performance are relatively intact, I defend this package against any major criticism. With that said, I was sort of sad that Sega only did this for the Wii. The PlayStation 3 would have easily done this at full HD resolutions, and it had a motion control alternative itself. But man, are these two still a great ride through Sega's arcade history. I love the non-stop bullet hell gameplay that is loaded with strategy. You'd think having endless bullets would be boring or too easy, but these games throw so much at you, you need every shell to survive. Not only are the rockets and explosives thrown your way able to be shot out of the sky, but the enemies themselves are so fast and tough, you have to unload on them to get them to stop. Each one a mini Terminator hell-bent on your destruction. It's no mere Virtua Cop ripoff, and feels like an experience no other arcade game ever really provided. For those unimpressed with gun games or preferred the more interactive nature of something like Time Crisis, this pack will leave you wanting more. It's a different beast entirely, trading cover mechanics for a relentlessly aggressive AI that synergizes perfectly with its speed. These bots won't stand still and wait to be killed. You'll earn every victory you get here. They are a brilliant ride, start to finish. If you have any interest in this game, it would benefit you to know the price has been ticking up over the years. Sega didn't make a lot of them, and that is pushing the price closer and closer to collector's territory. If you haven't played the arcade versions, man, do yourself a favor and add that to the bucket list as soon as possible. You haven't lived until you've dropped in 2 credits and dual-wielded both those guns alone, or played them with your best friend. There is a unique draw to this because the enemies are doing everything in their power to move, flip, dive, and avoid your weapon fire, and it creates an insatiable need to chase them down and see their corpse explode before you move on. It stands in direct contrast to the often slow-moving enemies that were easy targets in other games of this type. Most games have enemies that are sitting ducks waiting to be popped, but you feel the AI in Gunblade New York and LA Machineguns wants to actually live and fights for every second of life. I loved it, and it made it feel so unique and different. For me, it's every bit as memorable as the Virtua Cop titles. I'm Sega Lord X. Thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you next time.